Hey everyone, it's Matt from The Pen Habit. Glad to have you back for another review. And today's review is pretty special. Now, before we get into the pens, I want to talk a little bit about the pen company and its history. So, today's pen is going to be the Wahl-Eversharp Decoband. And this is not the vintage Wahl-Eversharp Decoband, it's the brand new Wahl-Eversharp Decoband. Now, I'm not, by any stretch of the imagination, a Wahl-Eversharp expert. I don't know a lot about their history. I've never used one of their vintage pens, so I don't have a background in that. I do have a little bit of an understanding of what happened with the modern incarnation of the company. So when I was at the DC show in 2015, and you're probably sick and tired of hearing about me at the DC show, but I would apologize. I'm not sorry, but I learned a lot of cool stuff there and got a lot of neat pens. So it's going to be coming up a lot even through the rest of this season. While I was there, I met Sid Saperstein. So Sid is a longtime Wahl-Eversharp collector, vintage collector, who a few years ago bought the rights to the Wahl-Eversharp name and their designs and basically started a new company also known as Wahl-Eversharp. Because he was a collector and he understood the vintage pens, he's done what I consider to be a really admirable job in sticking to what made the original Wahl-Eversharps special to the people who liked them. There have been other cases recently of people who have taken old brands and just slapped the name on them, but haven't really kept with what made those old brands popular. I don't find that to be the case with with what Sid is doing with Wahl-Eversharp. So when I was at the DC show, Sid had some prototypes of the new Wahl-Eversharp Decoband. Now, there isn't a vintage Decoband, which I've never used, never really held, but this is a new modern version, and he's done some very, very interesting things with it. Now, I haven't had this pen for very long, but I wanted to do a review as quickly as I could. So consider this kind of a first look review. I'm going to spend some more time with it. I'll probably do a quick video a little bit later in the season where I go back and give you some updated thoughts. But in the meantime, I wanted to get something out there because this is a new pen. It's really fascinating. There's a lot of cool stuff going on with this pen, and it's very different from a lot of other things that are on the market. So here we go. All right. This is the Wahl-Eversharp box, and look at so here it is a huge box, as you can see. Beautiful piano black lacquer with the Wahl-Eversharp inlaid in metal on the front cover. You can see that here. And then you open the box up inside, and we've got a couple of things. So we've got a antioxidant sleeve to keep the pen in, and a pneumatic filler gripper, which I'll talk about in just a little bit. And then we have on the inside a little booklet, a bottle of Wahl-Eversharp ink, and I believe this is Everberry is the color, yeah, Everberry here. Wahl-Eversharp ink, and then the pen itself. So I'm going to pull this out. Now this is a massive box. It is a massive box. Very lovely. But, you know, this is a pretty expensive pen. This is a presentation pen. The pre-release price was $850. The pre-order price, I don't know if that's what it's going to be selling for long term. This initial run, I believe there were only 75 of these made, but I think he's going to be making more of them. So here it is. This is the lovely Wahl-Eversharp Decoband. It is a big honking pen. It's made from ebonite, and it is made from one of the most beautiful ebonites I have ever seen in my entire life. It's called rosewood ebonite, and it actually does look a lot like wood. Here it looks a little bit more like the classic ebonite that you're used to. It's not as bright red, but there is certainly a rosewood tint to it. It's a flat top pen, a little gold ring here, the Wahl-Eversharp logo on the side, and a roller clip. And you've got a triple band here, so thin band, Greek key band, and another thin band. Tapers down to the pneumatic filler knob, and there's a little hole here. I'll walk you through how this gets filled. Nice, you know, kind of tapered design, beautiful polish job on this ebonite. It really is gorgeous, gorgeous pen. So you unscrew the cap, and underneath you've got brass threads and a black section with a little brass knob up front. Then you come to this nib. Now this is a very special nib. This is what Wahl-Eversharp is calling their Superflex nib. So in talking with Sid at the DC show, there are a few things that make this nib special. First of all, it's a number 8 size nib. So I don't think I have a number 6 size. Oh, I do have a number 6 size nib in here. So this is a TWSBI nib. This is a number 6 size nib. That's a number 8 size nib. So you can see it is much, much larger. It's a 14 karat gold nib, but Sid was telling me at the DC show, they've come up with a whole new alloy for this 14 karat gold that I think the hope was to try to make it more like old vintage flex nibs. We'll get to whether or not that's successful in a little bit, but they actually went through and did a little bit of metallurgy to try to recreate that vintagey flex feel. The shape is a little, we've got the nice long tines here. But one of the other things they did is they've laser etched the face of the nib. And according to Sid, what this does is it actually thins out the material a little bit, increasing flexibility. Now there are other modern flex nibs on the market. Some of them are pretty good, some of them are not so great. But for most of them, there seems to be a problem with keeping the ink flowing. Most modern pens seem to have problems keeping the ink going through the through the feed. I think of the Pilot Custom Heritage 912. You can actually flex the tines on that quite a bit, but the feed almost cannot keep up with that. And so in order to do that, you'll notice this feed is red. Now, I haven't done a ton of research on this, but what research I have done, I believe this is an ebonite feed, and I believe it is coated with urushi lacquer. That's what I've heard. If anyone knows differently, please let me know. And I've got feelers out to Sid to ask him a little bit more about the pen, but I wanted to do this pretty quickly. So we've got lovely, and I like the red nib on this a lot. I actually think it looks pretty nifty. So another thing I learned from talking to Sid at the DC show is that this modern Wahl-Eversharp Decoband is proportionally identical to the vintage ones. Now, one of my complaints about vintage pens, and I've talked about it a little bit, is that in general, pens seemed to be smaller back in those days. It's hard to find oversized vintage pens, and I like larger pens, I always have. So in a lot of ways, I think it was wise for Wahl-Eversharp to increase the size of the Decoband for modern pens. If you're going to be spending this much money on a pen today, generally speaking, most pens at this price range are oversized. That being said, I feel like they went just a little bit overboard. It is proportionally identical to the older ones, but it feels huge because in many ways it is. And I can show you some examples here for comparison. So here's the Decoband, and then this is the Lamy All-Star. And just for fun comparison's sake, the Pilot Metropolitan. Got a couple of others. The Pelican M600 in white tortoise. I'm going to slide these down. The Pelican M800 in brown tortoise. The Pelican M1000. And finally, the Mont Blanc 149. So you can see this pen is even longer than the Mont Blanc 149. This is a big honkin' pen, and it's a wide pen too, but you don't even notice it quite as much. I'm going to actually take the cap off of this one and show you a comparison. He likes to roll, to the 149 without the cap. So look at the difference there. I mean, this is a huge honking pen. It's a gorgeous pen, but it feels a little too oversized just looking at it. I will tell you, it does not feel even remotely oversized in the hand. I find this an exceptionally comfortable pen to write with. So, as previously mentioned, big pen. We are sitting at 149.6 millimeters in length when it's capped. You have got 142.8 millimeters when it's uncapped. And it can be posted. It does not post terribly securely. It's just friction fit. I will never ever post this pen after this video though, because A, I don't want to damage the finish at all, and B, this pen is a redonkulous 193.8 millimeters. When it's posted, I mean, you could do some serious damage with this pen if you wanted to. In terms of diameters, you're looking at about, in the middle of the section here, you're looking at about 13.3 millimeters, which is wide. I generally tend to hold this pen a little bit further down on the section because it's got such a long nib, which works out better, so it's a little bit less than that. At the widest point of the barrel, you're talking at 15 millimeters, and the widest point of the cap up here is 18 millimeters. So, big pen. It's also quite a heavy pen, in part due to the amount of material and in part due to the filling system, which I'll talk about in just a second. The pen uncapped is 44 grams and capped is 58 grams. Now, I actually really like the weight on this pen, particularly when you're using it for flex writing, and I'll show you why that is in just a little bit. Now, the filling system. This is a pneumatic filler, and for those who aren't familiar with it, you'll notice the cap here has a little hole, or the knob has a little hole in the bottom of it. So there's a rubber sac on the interior of this pen. What you do is you unscrew the pneumatic filling knob and you pull it out. You pull it out like this, and you'll notice inside it says, you know, Wahl-Eversharp, etc. You stick the nib of the pen in your ink, put your finger over the hole, and push it down. Now, I've got ink in here, so I don't want to do this. What this does is it creates air pressure on the inside, which compresses the sac. Then, when you take your finger off of the hole, the sac will, the air pressure will release, the air will escape from here, from the hole, the sac will release, and it will draw ink up into the sac. And it has, according to Sid, quite a large ink capacity. Now, you'll notice I closed this without covering the hole because I didn't want to expel all the ink I had in here. I haven't cleaned out a pneumatic filler before. I have no idea what the process of cleaning this out is going to be like, so look for that in the follow-up video when I do that in a couple of months. But I will say this holds quite a bit of ink. The filling was very easy, and I kind of like the pneumatic system. It's kind of fun. All right, so last thing, super flex nib. Let's talk about this a little bit. Modern flex nibs can kind of be iffy. This one actually worked pretty darn well. So rather than me talk about it too much, even though I just said let's talk about it a little, I think I'm just going to show you. So why don't we do a bit of writing? So this is the Wahl-Eversharp Decoband, and this is the rosewood ebonite finish. It also comes in a blue material and a black material, and there is a demonstrator out there, a clear version of the pen that is not in production yet, but from what I'm hearing online, a lot of people are interested in that demonstrator version. So there may be a demonstrator version. I don't know why people are so excited about a demonstrator version, because come on, the whole thing is a metal sleeve and a rubber sac. What's it going to look like on the inside? That doesn't make any sense to me. It's not like you're going to see the ink sloshing around. I could be wrong, but that's my understanding. Anyway, the ink for this review is Ackermann number 11, Trevet turquoise, and the paper. Oh, and the paper, as it always is a Rhodia dot pad. And as I mentioned, this is a 14 karat gold Superflex nib. Now, out of the box, this nib was great, but I will say that the tines were perfectly aligned like this. They didn't come together at the tip at all. I did adjust it just a tiny little bit to make it do that, because I was getting a line that was closer to medium than fine out of this, and I wanted a slightly finer starting line. It's a minor thing. I didn't have any problems with the way it wrote. It was just a preference thing at that point. That's the only change I've made to the nib at this point. So let's go ahead and do the quote, something that is, I think, rather appropriate for the holiday season. All right, like that quote. Goodness knows we could, what the world needs now is love, sweet love. And yes, I just used Burt Bacharach lyrics along with St. Francis of Assisi. What are you going to do? All right. Okay, so I know what you're all wanting to see first of all. So let's do a little bit of flexing, shall we? I'll do it right here. Just do a little bit of flexing. And you know what? It flexes. It's a little bit stiffer than my vintage flex on my Waterman Ideal number 7, but only a little bit. And honestly, I've seen it loosen up a bit since I've started using it more. So I'm wondering if over time it's not going to loosen up a little bit more. It just, I mean, we've got I'd say probably a fine line oh, pushing a little fast there. So yeah, it can overdo it just a little bit. And that that goes back to what I was talking about a little bit earlier, is I still find it railroad on me every now and again. It's not very much, and only when I press it probably a little bit farther than I should. Normally, you know, if we're just doing just a minor wetness test, it's actually quite a wet nib. I do a double pass here. It's a very, very wet nib. And I think the feed has something to do with it. It's clearly designed to help with flexing a little bit. And it's really smooth. This is without question the smoothest flexible nib I have ever used. Very smooth. The lack, if you can write with no pressure, this pen just sings. The no pressure writing is spectacular on this pen. The flex writing is pretty good too, and I mean, you get some really hefty line variation here. So, you know, people are asking, why don't they make modern flex nibs? Well, here is one, and it's probably the best modern flex nib I've used up to this point. I'd say it's a little bit better than the Omas Extra Flexibile nibs that I've used, and for flexing. And it's a lot better from just the regular everyday writing experience. It's a great plain writer if you write with no pressure. And if you want to flex, man, there is some beautiful stuff going on there. You can see here, just do a little bit of flex. Writing. Clearly something I'm not great at. Oh, overdid it. There we go. So, you know, you can see it is getting a little bit of railroading here. I was not getting this much railroading yesterday, so I may be almost out of ink. And that's one thing about this pen. It doesn't have a window. There's no way of telling how much ink is in here. So if I am running a little low on ink, that may explain why I'm getting some of the railroading. I'll spend a little bit more time with this when I come back for the follow-up review, but I'm pushing this pretty hard, much harder really than I feel like I ought to for my day-to-day writing here. I probably, you know, if I were going to flex this regularly in just my regular writing, I'd probably doing something like that. And that does seem to work quite nicely. And I'm just going to smear this because it's wet. It's a wet pen. It is exceptionally comfortable in the hand as well. It just kind of sits there. I don't feel the need to grip this pen. Some pens I feel like I need to grip. This one just really does sit in my hand, and I'm able to get a much lighter hand with this pen than I can with almost any other. And I think that a lot of that has to do with the weight, the heft of the pen. So anyway, this is my first look review of the Wahl-Eversharp Decoband, the modern version with the number 8 Superflex 14 karat gold nib, the pneumatic filler. It is a beautiful pen, just an absolutely gorgeous pen, a great writer, especially the Flex is, I'm still getting a sense for what the pen is capable of. I have seen a touch of railroading. It's not the worst, but a little bit of railroading, especially when I flex it hard for a long period of time, but it has a lovely bounce to it aside from that. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you have questions or comments about this pen, please leave them down in the description below or head over to penhabit.com and post comments over there. If you have any questions specifically about this pen, please let me know. I'm going to be asking Sid a few other questions before I do a follow-up review in a couple of months. But in any case, it's a beautiful pen. This rosewood material is gorgeous. It is perfectly polished. It is so comfortable in the hand. This is a gorgeous, gorgeous writing instrument. One I'm quite fond of, I must say. So, thanks so much for watching. We will see you here next time on The Pen Habit. Bye. Side note, I've said this before, I'm gonna say it again. I don't speak French. Oh, shouldn't cover up my mic. I don't speak French. If you know what I'm talking about, chill the heck out. Yes, I do not pronounce the name Montblanc properly. I don't speak French. I could try. I'd probably sound like I'm making fun of French speakers by trying. You know what I'm talking about. Chill out. If you don't, I'm going to start calling it Mont Blanc. Anyway, I'm watching you. Give you my librarian look over the top of my glasses. Can you tell I got some emails? Anyway, the MB149 is smaller than this thing. Is himself a huge fan, a huge collector of vintage Wahl-Eversharp. So he understood what made those old Walls or those Wahl-Eversharp pens really impressive. There have been other people who haven't really done the same thing. A lot of the old damn it, start again. So let us go ahead and talk through measurements now. Damn it. Oh, I forgot to do the measurements.